So in this video, I'm going to be answering the question of how much a software developer programs in a week. Now to do this, I used a program or a piece of software called Whack-A-Time, and this is something that I installed in my editor, VS Code, and it would track me as I coded along the week. So what we're going to be looking at is the past week of me coding. Now, it's probably good for me to tell you I'm probably not the average software developer. So I'm not fully employed at a company, and my time is split into really three quadrants, and not all of them are coding related. So first off, the main thing that I'm coding on or working on is something called Saffron, which is my startup. And then secondly, I am making YouTube videos, which I am coding with. And then thirdly, I do some consulting on the side. So those three things are what I do basically for a living. And so those things you're going to see reflected in the graphs here. But because I do those things, I have a little bit more flexibility, and we're going to see that. So just to start off with, we're going to be looking at some of these different graphs that Whack-A-Time creates for us. So you're going to see overall in the 7 days that I worked 35 hours and 45 minutes. Now, if we take a look at this first little graph thing, it's going to basically break down the day and then tell us each project that I was working on, how much time I did that day working on that project. Now, particularly with me this week, I had a big deadline. Well, not particularly deadline, but a big feature that I wanted to release in Saffron. So that is the majority of my time that I was spending on was coding on that. So notice here I have basically a split of majority of my time on Monday on Saffron and the rest on this project called My Monorepo, and that is just the YouTube video that I was working on that day. And we're going to see about the same amount of time overall, 5 hours for these 2 days, and then we can see this next day was a little bit less, 4 hours, but a little bit more this day, 6 hours and 40 minutes. And you'll notice I'm actually not too picky on how much work that I do in a particular day. Instead, I kind of see how I feel, and I prefer breaks. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But you'll notice this day I worked on a bunch of random little projects, got maybe a little distracted on what I needed to do, and was looking at other stuff. Here we can see I was looking at Saffron mostly and a TypeScript project. And then here we can see I was doing some Apollo link state stuff and then also some Saffron stuff. And you'll see this is the day I programmed the most for 7 hours. And you'll notice in the 7 days that I programmed every single day. So personally, I don't do a ton of programming. Well, I guess you could call this a ton of programming, but I don't basically program for 5 days and then take 2 days off. Instead, I spread it out 7 days and program, you could say, a little bit less on each day, but spread it out across 7 days. And so we can see that in this bar graph that in general, I'm programming around 4 to 5 hours a day. And we can see that here. Now, occasionally I'll go maybe dip a little bit under, dip a little bit over. And then, sometimes I just get into the flow of things and I'll just program a little bit longer. And that's pretty much how I do programming. And we'll see that when we look at this graph right here is the times that I'm actually programming. So for me, I usually like doing programming for a chunk of time, then taking a break, then programming for a chunk of time. Now, that's not always possible, but it is ideal. So there's an example of Monday, what my day looked like. So I started programming around 9:30ish, programmed for a little bit, took a little break. It looks like programmed for a little bit longer. Looks like for 34 minutes, 44 minutes. Here we got our 40-minute block. These are kind of shorter blocks that usually that's like a decent chunk of time, but sometimes I'll go for longer. And we can see that here's where I made my YouTube video for that particular day. And then here, I just went on straight programming bender here. I was doing just like, got into this. Sometimes, when you're programming, you just get into the flow of things and you just start going. So here I programmed for 2 hours. And then looks like I stopped around here. I did a little, probably like 10:30ish or something, and then went to sleep. And so I usually sleep around 9 hours each day. And you'll notice there's a large chunk here and there's a large chunk here. Here's probably where I had lunch and probably did something. I can't remember. And then here is where I usually go to the gym each day. This is a big thing for me. I don't go to gym every day right now. Sometimes I do. But the particular workout routine that I'm doing I go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So here on Monday, you'll see a gap there where I went to the gym, ate dinner, showered, and whatnot. And then I'll also usually do some stuff and make my video and then start programming. And we can see here's another day. But you're going to see, I guess, like a general theme going on where there's a chunk of work done in the morning. And you'll see majority of it's coming from the Saffron project. There's going to about be a chunk here. I usually make my YouTube video at the same time every day, right around here-ish, around 6-ish. And then I'll do a chunk of programming after usually on Saffron after I make my YouTube video. And we can look at another day. Morning chunk. I guess this was not a morning chunk. I must have been doing something else in the morning. It looks like afternoon chunk. Then do this, then back to that, and it's going to be similar. Now, some days where I'm not working out, I may be able to slip in more programming, so that looks like the case for Thursday, and you'll notice I was able to get quite a bit. I guess this is my 6-hour, 40-minute day, and I was able to get some pretty good blocks of programming in 1 hour, 20 minutes. Looks like it was a little blocky there, but so that is kind of what the gist of my schedule looks like. We can click through a couple more days. I'm not sure what happened this day. And then if I can help it, I don't want to have a bunch of small blocks, but I want to have a couple of big blocks. But these are not bad too. You'll notice it looks like my attention span is around 40 minutes. That seems to be a consistent thing that I'm seeing across multiple of them. And then if I'm getting like a good session, looks like it can be up to 2 hours. But you'll notice it looks like I'm not programming for any longer than 2 hours at a time. Maybe this block is more than that. No. That seems to be where my thinking capacity caps out in a single session of programming, and I take a break. And that's big for me. I think I do a lot of programming. That's the thing about how I program is I'm not usually just like sitting at my computer either. I'll usually take a break, walk around, think about what I'm going to do, and then go ahead and execute on it. So I may only be executing on that for 40 minutes, and I'm done with that particular execution of code, implementing it, and I can go back to either thinking, taking a break, and decide what I'm going to be working on next, and then rinse and repeat. Nothing really interesting here. This is just telling me how much I programmed compared to the last day, 42% increase. When I did this giant day there. And then down here we can see the programming languages that I worked on. This is no surprise. If you follow the channel, I'm a big TypeScript fan. I can see that's where the majority of my time is spent with those programming languages. And then lastly, the editor is VS Code. Of course, 100% of the time. That's the only plugin I installed, but that's the only editor I'm really using right now. Kind of interesting. I was opened a GraphQL file for 2 minutes. Not much else. JSON, I'm wondering if that's coming from tsconfig files, and then a little bit of JavaScript, but not much else. So I'm pretty happy with this language breakdown with majority TypeScript. I've been enjoying using that. But yeah, so that is kind of the breakdown of how much I'm programming. Now, if I had to estimate how much I actually work in a week, I would probably say it's maybe around 50 hours a week, maybe 70 hours if I'm really busy that week. So I'm doing more things than just sitting at the computer and typing per se. I'm either doing meetings, and even if I'm on the computer, I may not necessarily just be programming or have VS Code up. I may be answering emails, answering questions on Discord or my YouTube channel, or taking meetings. I may have already said that, brainstorming for different things and whatnot. And in general, I don't just spend 4 hours a day programming or 8 hours a day programming in a single block. I kind of like to break up my day into smaller things. So I may do a block of programming, then do some meetings, some other things, do a block of programming, and that's kind of my general schedule. Anyway, that is how much I program. Let me know in the comments below if you're a software developer, how much are you programming, and are you happy with the amount you're programming?